could see the wooden beams that were used to build the kitchen there. They were stamped with the year 1909.
Okay,
My brother's room had
I'm
3
back.
different entrances. It was long and narrow with this ancient yellow tile in it.
Post a quick little thing on
We
YouTube.
decided it must have been where the patients'
on
beds had
Facebook.
gone when the house was still functioning as a hospital. My bedroom closet was really tall and narrow,
Do it a little bit,
with
see if I can
bizarre
get some
proportions. It was probably only 5 feet wide and 5 feet deep
Check this
square,
out, dude.
but the ceiling was around 12 feet tall. There were no hanging rods or hooks or anything you would expect in a
What are you,
closet.
fish?
Just a tiny bench that was only a few inches off the floor and built into the wall. The closet door had a huge lock that could only be used with one of those old skeleton keys. We had so many weird occurrences in that place, we stopped paying attention. The doors would open and close on their own, not just the occasional creak from the wind either. They would open and slam closed repeatedly,
awkward.
over and over again. It wouldn't stop until you put something heavy in front of them. We all had bricks and other heavy objects
make
in
a
our
video
rooms
out
to
of that?
barricade the doors when they decided to go nuts like this. A couple of times, I would be about to fall asleep, but I would feel a hand lift my hair off of my forehead in a sort of nurturing gesture. I would sit straight up and find that I was still alone. Most of these occurrences could be brushed off as weird old house stuff or a dozing dream, but there was one thing that really stood out as being inexplicable. My dad was a true
Awkward.
bastard of a man. He was an evil drunk that would stumble up the stairs in the middle of the night to scream his head off at us kids over some nonsense. My brother's room was at the top of the stairs, so he would be the first visit on these tirades. So, sometimes he would camp out on my floor so we could have some warning that the asshole was incoming.
Why are you private?
My dad had this really pronounced limp from
Don't
an
tell me my
alcohol-induced
stream's
car
private. That'll make
accident,
me mad.
so you could really hear this guy coming. His stomping gait,
Should not be
combined with the
private.
creaks and the groans of the old house, always let you know that he was on his way. That night, my brother was sleeping on my floor. He got woken up by his door going bonkers, so he had asked to stay in my room for the night. It was only a few minutes after we turned off the lights that we then heard the first clattering footfall on the stairs. We both looked at each other and steeled ourselves. We heard the thudding pair of feet hit each and every step. You could hear each step creak and sag from the weight of the person standing on them. The landing at the top of the stairs always creaked especially loud since the floorboards were so old. But when the footsteps reached the last stair, we didn't hear anything. We waited and waited, and it was only silence. No creak of the landing, no noises of someone going back down the stairs. Eventually I got brave and peeked around the corner, and there was no one there.
Jeez.
Our dad wasn't
That
even
explains why
home
we wouldn't
yet.
get some people.
As I walked back to tell my brother, my bedroom door slammed right in front of me. I did not miss that house for so many reasons. My brother and I are now grown, and he still brings it up with a shudder. This happened about a year ago, during the summer. I work at a local family-owned grocery store that has its own package store. With a package store comes a bottle return room, and ours is particularly small, with only 2 machines that, may I add, jam and break fairly easily. We're located next to a gas station convenience store, so we get our fair share of strange, creepy men who love to make young women feel uncomfortable
Where you at?
and purposely break our bottle machines so the girls have to fix them as they watch. We also get a handful of regulars since we're a local shop, and unfortunately, many of our regulars are those creepy, perverted men. Our bottle room is where this story starts. It was a Saturday night, around 8 o'clock. We close at 10 on Saturdays, so although it was summer, it was dark outside once we left work. One of our regulars, I'll call him Jim, came in to return some bottles. Jim is slightly older, probably in his 50s. He's a short man who smelled of sweat and beer and loved to sing while returning his bottles. He didn't seem to be as creepy as most of the other men that came in,
Jeez, there's something
but
wrong with me.
I was always cautious around him. Naturally, my co-worker, I'll call him Nick, and I got a call at the registers letting us know that the bottle machines were jammed. Nick volunteered to go unjam the machine since he knew who was behind the call. Nick comes back to the front after a few minutes and everything is completely normal. He helps a few customers out and waits to see if Jim will come to the front before telling me that he was going to fill the milk and eggshells in the cooler. It was protocol for closing the store. It doesn't take too long to restock the milk and the eggs, maybe 10 minutes on a night where the shelves are very empty. But Nick came back within about 2 minutes. After ringing up another customer, he told me, "Hey, Jim was asking to see you, personally, so just a heads up." Despite the gross feeling that gave me, it wasn't out of the ordinary for Jim to say that. Nick cleared his line through though, and then said quickly, "Oh, and he had a machete, so there's that too." Now,
There's that
the chick
too.
going down
Jesus
in the
H.
bottle
Christ.
room isn't unusual, but I can say
Hi,
that
Andrew.
I've never seen or even heard of a customer carrying a
I know
machete
you're
in any
here.
store. I suggested that we call the police, but Nick told me that he wasn't threatening anyone with it. He was putting it back in his backpack, so the cops probably wouldn't do much. I shrug it off for the most part, as I trusted Nick, but still keep it in the back of my head to watch out for Jim. 10 or 15 minutes go by and there was no sign of Jim anywhere, so
Hi,
I
Andrew.
figured that it was safe for me to assume that he had left and would redeem his bottle slip another time. The next hour and a half goes by smoothly. We're getting ready to close our registers and lock our doors, when I see someone run by the floor to the ceiling windows at the front of the building, which is behind our registers, so while I'm working on the register, my back is to the windows. I shrug it off again, but I'm still wary, and decided to keep myself on high alert and return to my closing business. Out of the corner of my eye, I see the same person run by the sliding doors to my left, tripping the motion sensor, causing the doors to open. This time, I recognize the person as Jim. At this point, I'm getting slightly nervous and tell Nick that it was close enough to 10 PM for him to lock up. He goes and locks the doors, and I see Jim run by again, totally ignoring Nick. We finish closing, and Nick shuts all the lights off. I tell him not to
Hey,
leave
Andrew,
yet
buddy, if you
because
can,
I
please
was
share it for
feeling
me, bud.
Even more nervous about Jim running around outside. As a side note, Jim wasn't just leisurely going for a run around the store. He was pacing, almost like he was circling our store, waiting for us to come out. I let Nick know
Aw.
that I was very unnerved by this, especially since I hadn't driven to work that night, and my mother wasn't there to pick me up. He said it would be okay from inside of the store, and we just needed to wait it out. We were waiting in the aisles of the store, watching Jim closely, when
Whoa.
I noticed a gleam of light
Come on.
reflecting
There we
off something in his hand. It was his machete. I texted my mum to tell her to park right in front of the back door so I could jump straight into a car when she got there. When Nick and I deemed it safe enough to leave, we took the opportunity and booked it out of there. I saw Jim at the front of the store as Mum and I drove
Imagine
off.
if it was me reading.
I can definitely say that that event sticks out to me as the most unsafe I've felt at work. I can't tell you why I didn't call the police. I guess I just trusted Nick enough to also trust his word against calling them. But looking back, I think it was dumb of us not to call them. Some things to add to this story was that I was a 17-year-old girl at the time of this event. Knowing that Jim was asking for me personally, that situation had the potential
Lol.
to get a whole lot worse, especially since we decided not to call the police. I also don't know the laws for carrying weapons in my town that I live in, or at my place of work, so I'm not sure if it was legal to have it on the property of the store or not, let alone carry it. All I can say is that I'm glad I didn't walk out the back that day. A lot of this story is told from accounts other than my own, but there are also some of my own personal experiences too. When I was a teenager, maybe 16 or 17,
Just
I
so
was
you
living in
know,
a small
bud,
town
this is my
outside of
favorite
Nashville,
scary
Tennessee.
story YouTuber.
During the summer,
I like him better
I would
than
spend nearly every day
Creepypasta.
with my two best friends, Michael and Jimmy. Jimmy's mother, Amanda, had just remarried to a really nice guy named Matt, who treated them really well. Also, Matt was a very well-off music producer in Nashville. When they bought a new house, Matt went all out to convert the finished basement into a hangout for all of the kids. It was really awesome. It was a big screen TV with every game console you could imagine that was available at the time. Matt had also put about 5 twin beds in one section of the room for people to sleep over in. Now, it's important to understand that the basement was actually an exit to the backyard. The house was one of those houses where it looked like a 2-story home from the front, but 3 stories from the back. We spent hours down in that basement once all the moving was done. The first night they stayed in the house, Michael and I were invited to stay with them, and of course, we agreed. We were awake until past midnight, seeing as how it was summer vacation and we had nowhere to be in the morning. I fell asleep on the bed that was closest to the French doors that led to the backyard. I woke up at around 3 a.m. with a very strange feeling. When I looked up, I saw what I thought was
I think Be
Jimmy's little
Busta's
sister,
better, fam.
Chelsea, sitting in front of the TV.
If you
that was
can you
turned
talk
off.
in the chat on here?
My eyesight being terrible,
So I don't
not
have to keep
having my
switching over to
glasses
Facebook.
on, that was the only logical assumption that I came to.
Brown.
When I said Chelsea's name, the little girl turned her head very slowly to look at me. As I said, I couldn't really see her face since the room was only lit by the dim moonlight. I was not wearing my glasses. So I said, "Chelsea, come on, let's go back upstairs," and rolled over to get my glasses. But when I turned back around, she was gone. There was no sign of her, and I didn't hear her go upstairs. At the time, I didn't really think much of it, so I turned back around and just went back to sleep. And that was our first night of staying there. The very next morning, Amanda woke up to make breakfast for everyone. As I said before, the house's first floor was actually the second floor from the back of the house.
Do I like this,
to
or
the
do I
kitchen,
think black would
down
be
into
better?
the backyard. Amanda noticed that there was a little girl standing in a nightgown walking around the backyard. She assumed that this was one of the neighborhood girls that wanted to come over and play on the playground in the backyard, and didn't think much of it. She went back to cooking breakfast,
Do I like
but when
this,
she came back to the window,
or do I
the
like
little girl
black?
was gone. Right around this time, she sees Chelsea come out of the hallway from the bedrooms and walk into the living
See
room.
how black would look.
She starts to call her to see what she wants for breakfast.
God, it's like
but
night black.
gets no
God
response. After asking a few times,
I'm
she walked
I
into
think
the
we'll go
living
brown
room to
here.
see why she wouldn't answer, but the
Make it
room
up with
was
some leather.
empty. She walked down the hall to Chelsea's room to see her sound asleep still. Amanda was confused, but she just assumed that she was half asleep still from the long day of moving the day before. She woke Chelsea up and asked her if she was hungry. Chelsea said yes and walked into the living room to play.
Back up.
Not too long after this, Amanda hears Chelsea talking in the next room and laughing. She comes into the living room to ask who she's talking to.
I wonder what the arrow button.
Chelsea says, "I'm talking to my new friends." Amanda assumes that these are imaginary friends. She plays along and asks, "Oh, how many are there?" Chelsea says that there are 2 friends. "Are they little girls like you?" Amanda asked. Chelsea says, "One of them is. Her name is Layla. My other friend is older than us." "What is this older friend's name?" "Her name is..." And she said the name of Amanda's grandmother that had died nearly 30 years ago. Amanda started to get a little confused. Chelsea then said something that made her skin crawl. "But she says your name is not Mummy." "What do you mean, Chelsea?" "She says that your name is..." And Chelsea told Amanda a nickname that her grandmother had for her that no one had ever known. Amanda was now frozen, but Chelsea continued. "She says that she's worried about you because of the man in the house." Do you mean Matt?" No, she's talking about the other man in the house. Layla says that he's really mean." After hearing this, Amanda was terrified for many reasons and decided to tell Matt about her conversation with Chelsea. Matt, however, just brushed it off as the overactive imagination of their 4-year-old. After a few more weeks in the house, no one had any other incidents. But one night,
Hello, how
Jimmy
are
was
you
at home by
doing?
himself and downstairs in
Just
the
letting you
basement
guys know, I
playing
do
video
have Be
games.
Busta on.
He heard
Link in the
Amanda
description.
call for him from upstairs.
Fantastic YouTuber.
When he went upstairs, though, he realized before even reaching the top that the entire house was pitch black. He called out for his mum, but there was no answer. He
You guys ever
figured he'd
just want to see like the
misheard
whole
and went
photo
back downstairs.
while I'm in the middle of painting, like a
few
certain
minutes
part, like
later,
say like
He heard it again.
I'm painting the boot right
This
now.
time, he ran up
Just
the stairs.
let me know in chat.
Turned
I'll
on all
zoom
the
out for you
lights,
for
screaming
like
for his
4 or
mum.
5 seconds.
But he still got no answer. He went into the kitchen and called his mother's cell phone to see where she was. She said that she had been at the store for the last half hour and hadn't been home since that afternoon. Jimmy was officially scared and asked her to come home. She rushed home hoping that there was no one in the house with a teenage son, but also hoping that there was a logical explanation for the sounds. After they reached the house and found no one, Amanda decided to tell Jimmy about her conversation with his sister a few weeks prior. Jimmy was very skeptical and even told me about it. And when I heard this, I could feel the goosebumps rise off of my arms. Then I told him about seeing what I thought was Chelsea in the basement until she just disappeared. Jimmy, though, still did not believe anything was more than our imagination and coincidences. Again, a few weeks went by without any incidences, until one afternoon when Amanda was at home by herself cleaning the house while the kids were out and Matt was at work. While she was cleaning out the closet under the stairs in the basement, she found an antique mirror that must have been left by the previous homeowners. She loved the mirror and wanted to mount it in Matt's in her room, so she took it out of the closet and leaned it up against the closet door. A little later, she decided to make herself some lunch and go watch TV on the big screen in the basement. She came down the stairs with a plate and a TV tray to eat on. She sat the plate on the table in front of the mirror and set up the TV tray. When she turned back to get the plate, she looked up to see a little girl in the mirror that was standing right next to her on the other side of the chair. She whipped her head around to see that there was no one there, and then immediately looked back at the mirror to see no one there either. She stared at the mirror for a bit, then saw something move very quickly in front of it, after which the door to the closet shook really violently. She ran up the stairs and out of the house, where she called Matt and begged him to come home. When Matt got home and she told him what she had seen, he became really angry and told her that she needed to stop with all this ghost nonsense and get a grip on reality.
Nonsense. Ha!
Amanda refused to sleep in the house that night and stayed at a hotel with the kids. Matt was able to convince her to come home the next day, but that night would be the last night that they would stay in that house, and the last time I would ever set foot in it as well. Amanda came home with the kids and we spent the day at the house hanging out and playing video games. That evening, we went into the garage to see this beautiful old Camaro that Matt was restoring. While we were standing around watching Matt work on his car, I just completely passed out.
Beautiful long
I
Camaro.
woke up with everyone standing around me on the ground while I was leaned up against a concrete wall with a huge headache and coke all over my clothes. When I asked what the hell happened, they all said that I fell over, started shaking uncontrollably, and then
Grand
pushed
mal
myself
seizure.
up against the wall and started hitting the back of my head against it. Then Chelsea said something that, to this day, nearly 15 years later, makes my eyes water and the hair on the back of my neck stand up. She said, "The mean man threw you." I jumped up and told Michael that we were leaving right that minute, and said that he had to drive me because I didn't want to be alone, even in a car. We sped off that property like our lives depended on it, and I never set foot in that house ever again. Later that week, we found out that Jimmy and his family had left the house in the middle of the night and never went back either. When I asked him why, he told me the final part of the story. He said that Matt woke up in the middle of the night to Amanda trying to wake him up. When he finally turned over to see what she was doing, he said that her face was blue and there was an obvious indentation in her abdomen as clear as day, with handprints around her neck, as if someone was
King
sitting on
Drew,
his
really?
stomach
That's your
and
nickname?
choking her. Matt started yelling and trying to help, and eventually it just
Jesus
was
H.
gone.
Christ.
She could breathe again. Matt and Amanda got the kids out of their beds and left the house and never went back.
Andrew, just letting you know that
The
there is
last I heard, Matt had the home
delay,
bulldozed
like,
to the ground.
20
Even
seconds,
to this
I think.
day, I'd have never set foot on that property again. This takes place a little over a year ago.
But you can hear me, right,
some
fam?
weekday around midnight in central Ohio. I want to preface this by saying I'm not particularly religious, nor do I necessarily believe in ghosts or supernatural things. But something weird happened that night that I can't explain. This story is 100% true, except for some certain details have been changed
Check,
to keep some element of anonymity. So let's call it a Wednesday, as I don't quite remember what day it was. Around 5 p.m. though. A friend tells me about an abandoned building a friend showed her the day before, and asked if I wanted to go check it out sometime. Of course, I do, but being the curious soul that I am, I wanted to go that night, whereas she couldn't. I ask a few friends to make the journey with me, and all decline, either because they aren't into the whole trespassing thing, or they are otherwise busy. I decided to go alone.
Boots?
This isn't something I usually do, as I have a few close friends who are just as experienced as I am in urbex, and the three of us are an excellent team when it comes to stuff like this.
I like the
I've
color
gone to
of the
places
boots.
alone before, but never with this little research done on
Probably
the
having
area.
some shading in that.
I couldn't find anything on the internet about this place. In the end, I decided to say fuck it and go, as I'm not one to back down from an opportunity like this. So I grab my bag, flashlight, camera, and I'm on my way. I tell someone exactly
that's how
where
the
I'll
best
be in
stories
case
begin.
something
Fuck
happens, and to call the police if I stop responding for a few hours.
Just say
I arrive about a mile from the location and start my journey. Most of it is woods and creeks, but the last bit is a dilapidated parking lot. I get to the lot and see not one, but two buildings to explore. This is turning out better than expected. I choose to go into the building on the left as it looks more easily accessible and start looking for a way in. Around the back, I find some metal stairs that have been overgrown and look like they're close to collapsing. I decided to take my chances and slowly climb them, keeping my eyes on each step to make sure I'm not going to fall through or anything. I climb the stairs just fine and get to the second floor. The door is closed, but opens just fine, no lock or anything. Looking around with my flashlight, this place is in better shape than a lot of abandoned buildings around my location. Part of the roof has been caved in from a tree falling, but everything else looks pretty good. I walk around the entrance room a bit more and realize where I am. There are note cards all over the floor with basic information on people. First and last names, address, date of birth, diagnosis code, and inpatient or outpatient with a check next to one. I'm in a psychiatrist's office. Nice. I love these kinds of places, and insane asylums are my favorite places to explore. I have a seat and look through some of the patient cards.
You see,
I look
this
up
is one of the few
diagnosis
things I will
codes
never do.
and
I
try
will
to get
never
a
go to like
profile of who the
insane
person
asylums
was. No particular
willingly.
reason. It was just interesting stuff. After
Except
a bit of
maybe, like,
this,
with a tour
I
or
stand up and
something.
continue my journey. Now, the way this building is set up is basically a giant letter I with the entrance stairs I used at the bottom and a boarded up main entrance in the center. The only set of stairs to the first floor are at the top of the I. I look around some of the second floor room and don't really see much. Mostly empty offices with a chair or a lamp in the room. I do, however, find a room that I assume was for children to play in while their parents were seeing a psychiatrist. It had a sandbox and some toys laying around, but I noticed someone took some of the sand and drew a pentagram on the floor with it. I chuckled. After seeing everything I needed to see on the second floor, I go down to the first floor. The stairs are steep and winding, but very sturdy. I check the door to make sure it won't lock behind me and make my way down. The first floor is basically just a long hallway
That
with
would
rooms
really
along
suck
one
if
side
the door locked behind
and a
you.
reception area on the other. I start checking out the rooms on the right side. After a few interesting rooms, break
Yeah,
room,
you'd probably be
kitchen,
scared,
storage closet
Drew.
with Christmas stuff inside, I come across this office with something interesting on the desk. But before getting to that, I want to pose a question. Why does every abandoned building have Christmas stuff in it? Like, seriously, 90% of the buildings I've been in have fake trees, wreaths, garland, or something like that. What gives? Anyway, So on the desk in this office
Because
is a set of
Santa
post-it
takes your
notes.
money and you get
On these
foreclosed.
notes are messages that make me feel a little bit uneasy. They go like this. He is planning on letting the hostage out. 4:30. Do we have staff accountability yet? 4:35. Can Officer John escort Jane out of the room? 4:42. These are some of the pictures of the notes. And this is where things got weird. As soon as I take the picture on my
Andrew,
phone,
did you fall asleep?
the entire building starts shaking violently. My first thought was earthquake. Now, I'm not speaking from experience, but I have to assume that an old, dilapidated building isn't the type of place you want to be during an earthquake. So I start to make my way back out, only this time, rather briskly. As I get upstairs, I notice the door I propped open to keep from locking me down there was now only slightly ajar. The small piece of metal I propped it open with is nowhere to be seen, although I didn't look very hard. As I'm walking or jogging my way out through this gyrating building, I noticed that every door I had opened upstairs was now closed tight. What the hell? Was someone fucking with me? I didn't want to stick around to find out. As I was leaving the larger room I entered through, I noticed the door I came in was shut. I pulled on it, but nothing. The fucking thing wouldn't open. Now, I'm pretty calm under
Well, that's
pressure.
what it looks like as
This
of
was
right
beginning
now.
to be too much. I was starting to freak out a bit.
Any idea what I,
I
should
made
do
the
for the
quick
color of
decision
the
to
skirt?
force my way out. Typically,
Like, it looks like I got
hate
plaid
doing any
thing going
damage to a
on,
building
but
that
I
I'm
could always
exploring.
change the design.
I usually try to avoid it whenever possible. But this was a special case. I wanted to get the fuck out of there. I thought about it. Kick the door down? I've done it before, but this door didn't seem like it was going to go anywhere. It opens the other way, and it was really sturdy. I guess I'm kicking at the pressboard covering the window next to it. Luckily, these windows were huge and low enough that I could get a foot on the wood. 2 kicks and the wood gives out. The building is still shaking, so I make a hasty getaway down the stairs. And then, the part that still spooks me was that as soon as my feet hit the ground from the last step, the building stopped shaking. Like, completely. In fact, everything around me was silent. I must have been going crazy or something. But I know what I felt and I know what I saw. Well, I got out of there and didn't look back. A few weeks later, my crew freed up and wanted me to show them the place, even after I told them this story. Oddly enough, every other time I've been there, nothing out of the ordinary has happened. I'm not sure what happened or why, and I'm not one to believe it was a ghost or anything,
wants your
but I'd be lying if I said that it didn't shake me up a bit. Was it just a well-timed earthquake? Possibly, but I heard nothing about it on the news the next day. Nobody else said that they felt or heard anything. Any insight on this, whether it be spiritual, geological, or anything really, would be wonderful to know.
Hey, oh, I have somebody else in chat. Well, at least somebody else watching. That's interesting. Drew, we're not alone anymore. We have a person. Oh, and he left. Sad face. People come in, they'll take like 5 seconds, look at the video, and then just, they're gone. They're gone. But it's okay. It's okay.
G'day mates, it's Be Busta here. So, as I'm sure that all of you are well aware by now, the YouTube adpocalypse has hit the wallets of many content.
Okay, Drew, what kind of scary story do you want to hear? Do you want to hear like an abduction? I highly recommend the deep web stuff. Just let me know, and I'll throw on one of Be Busters. There's like abduction, demons. There's a scary series. Like I said, my favorite stuff's about the deep web. Just let me know, and I'll throw it on, bud. Ah! Well, let me know what you want me to put on. Do you want to watch the deep web? Is that what you're telling me? Or listen to the deep web, I should say. You want to watch the deep web? Is that what you're telling me? Or listen to the deep web, I should say. Alright. Whoa, computer, stop freaking out. God damn it. Try not to kill myself here.
G'day mates, it's Be Busta here. So before this video begins, I just wanted to catch you guys quickly. Firstly, I just wanted to let you guys know that the second channel I've been working on is now up and running. There'll be a link in the description if you'd like to come and check it out. The channel will mainly focus on gaming, vlogging, and I guess kind of the more personal side of me and stuff like that. So come over and say hi when you get a chance. It'll be great to see you.
Yeah, Andrew, the reason why I typed
I want
that
to
in
provide a
chat
viewer's
is
discretion for this video. As with most deep web stories,
my
many of
keyboard's
the
right
stories
behind
within
it,
this
so it
video are
confuses
quite
me.
horrific. If you don't do well with this type of information, then it might be best to check out some of my other videos for now. But if you do have the iron will to press on, then without further ado, let's begin.
I just turn up the volume for you, fam. My keyboard's right behind it, so it confuses me.
Number 6.
Oh shit, that's loud.
This was back before Google. Web pages were, for the most part, still
Have you
very
ever heard of
basic
the Wendigo
HTML
fam?
and JavaScript. Hardly anyone used CSS. Only discussion boards and some banking sites had anything approaching mature front-end, back-end combinations. This is a real deep web story, not just one about illicit activities online. I was browsing random blogs, GeoCity sites and the like, just going from link to link. Eventually, I came upon an odd page. It appeared to be random thoughts from different
Like I
people,
said, buddy, have you ever
but
heard
for
the
the
Wendigo?
time, it was very well designed. The messages seemed to be cryptic in nature, like several people trying to pass secret notes. I started through the source, and hidden in the comments of a JavaScript were previous IP addresses. I gathered all of the IPs in a text file and began enumerating. Some were routers with banner messages I could telnet to, almost all at universities. Warning, this is a secure system at a university of blah blah blah. The default Cisco credentials from back in the day worked on most of them, but I didn't poke around. A few of the IPs were web servers with little to nothing on them, mostly APOC on Linux or some BSD, at least one IIS server I can recall. I finally came upon a web server with a huge directory of HTML files and TIFF images, with a few smaller subdirectories containing the same. NSLOOKUP returned no reverse records for the IP. A visual route traced it as far as Colorado. The HTML files appeared to be records a psychologist or similar mental health professional would keep. The images were of faxes, apparently of both military and medical nature. As I browsed from subdirectory back to the parent, at the top was a new HTML file named something like 1hellothere.html. Oddly enough though, the timestamp was from right that very minute. I opened it, and in plain text was the message, "We see you." No quotes, all lowercase. About 15 seconds later, the server, it dropped.
Number 5.
Have you ever heard of the
I
Wendigo?
live in the country
Andrew?
with 5 neighbours, and we have a long driveway, but the road is still in sight from where we live. This information will be useful soon. So, I was 13 at the time, and I woke up Christmas morning. The Christmas smell just excited me because I was hoping for a laptop. As soon as I unwrapped the box, I got so happy. But what I didn't know was that I was opening my death tool. As soon as we got the computer all set up, all I thought about was get on 4chan, get on 4chan. I did exactly what I wanted to do, and I immediately got on there and clicked into the chat room B, and I saw a link. I of course clicked on it thinking it was a picture, but it was a link on how to access the deep web. I was like, what the fuck is this? I was curious enough to follow these steps, and instead of using Tor, I used Freenet. Before I could access it, it left a note saying, "Browser discretion is advised." Being my normal self, I just overlooked it and I was on the deep web. I came across some disturbing things instantly that sent chills down my spine. Till I came across
The
a tab.
Wendigo.
I didn't know that it was child pornography, so I soon clicked it and I saw photos of men doing disturbing things to kids. I saw men who had kids in different positions. The kids' faces weren't even blurred, so you could tell the kids looked visibly shaken. And looking as if they were 8 or 9, I immediately clicked out of it. And I just cleared my history and enjoyed the Christmas with my family. But then, it gets weird. I got onto my laptop and it left a message saying, "You've successfully completed your order." I was like, I didn't order anything. What the fuck's going on? Then I clicked on the order and it said I ordered some type of drug. It wasn't a normal drug either by the looks of things. It was a green, purple fluorescent looking drug. It didn't have a name, it only contained numbers. I did some research on the deep web after this, and it said not accessing the deep web right can have unnoticed weird results. I didn't actually realize at the time that a strange man had my address and my mum's credit card number because I accessed the deep web. Then I started getting weird messages from a guy. He messaged me by my email saying, "Thanks for letting me use your credit card, it came in handy." I flipped out and told a friend, and they rushed over to my house and helped me delete all the data on my computer and erase everything. I thought I was safe until the next day. The man got my phone number. My iPhone lit up, and I don't usually bother answering these types of calls, but they called multiple times. Then I get a FaceTime call from a number. I hid myself from the camera and put myself on mute. When it connected, it showed a man pleasuring himself. I was disgusted and ended the call. Then the number texted me saying, "Did you like that, Sophia?" I said, "Fuck off, you whore." Then I blocked the number. Fast forward to New Year's Eve. My mum and dad got an alert that their card had been used. I overheard them and I panicked like hell. I ripped the damn memory card out of my computer and cut it and flushed it. Then I got a text from a different guy. It's a photo message. He sends me a picture of the foreign weed that I had seen on the deep web, but the bag that was on the picture was of me. I thought to myself, how and who? I replied to him and told him to fuck off. This time, I waited for a reply though. He replies, "I want to come on you." I just blocked him out of fear. I tell the same friend about it, and she insisted we tell her uncle. We never did because of the consequences though, and he left me alone for about a month. But on February 2nd, 2014, I was at home by myself, and the same man texts me on my phone, but from a different number. He says, "I saw your post on Facebook, and I'm here." My status said home alone with a bunch of emojis, and he doesn't text back, so I feel as if he was messing with me. I cracked the blinds. No one would be able to see me because the windows are tinted. And there he is. He had a big trash bag and he's wearing gloves. He's tall as fuck, so I can't make out his face. From my crouching position, I can see he's really skinny though, and when I say skinny, this guy looks like he weighs about 7, maybe 8 stone. I crawl away from the window as silently as possible. Then he starts banging on the door. I get on my feet and run. I run to my dad's room and grabbed a gun. I load it as I saw him do on New Year's, and I grab my phone and run to my room. I lock my door and turn off the lights, but I didn't realize the front door was unlocked. He's in my house. I call 911 and tell them everything, and they tell me to stay on the phone. The man's laughing so hard, I start to cry. He says,
"Sophia, I know you're in there."
His voice is so deep and it sounds so evil. I have the gun loaded and my finger is on the trigger. I was ready to shoot this fucker in the face if need be. Then, the crazy man, he just walks away, and his footsteps turn into silence. And about a minute later, a fist goes flying through my window. It's him. I take one good look at him. He looks crazy. You can see it in his eyes. He has brown hair and his eyes are really dark. He has scars on his face. He also has this weird grin. And after about a second, I run out of my room as he starts to crawl through my window. The cops haven't arrived yet, and I get on my bike. I try my best to get to the main road, and I see the man running out of my house. I fly down the street. I'm scared. I don't know where to go or what to do at this point. I turn around, and the man, he was about 6'8", and he could run too. I tell you, there was no stopping this guy. My house is out of sight, and I hear sirens, but the man's gone. Just like that, he's gone. I get taken to the police station, and somehow they managed to find the man. I was at the police station with the cops and saw him get out of the car. He looks at me and grins the whole time the cops take him in. My parents finally arrive, and they press charges. The man gets 46 years to life in custody. Also, they did background checks on his name. His name was Eric Finesworth. He had stalked over 19 kids under the age of 18 and also raped 5.
Jesus.
I'm thankful to be alive, and I'll never go browsing on the deep web ever again.
You still
But
awake there,
my
Andrew?
question is, what did that freak want to do if he got a hold of me?
Number 4.
The story I'm about to tell you happened a few years ago, and after a few weeks, it came to a screeching halt. One day, a few years back, I found myself browsing what is known as the deep web, or the dark web some call it.
No,
Because
there's a difference
being
between
an
the deep
army
web and
ranger
the dark web.
and having a huge attraction to wide varieties of firearms, a friend of mine told me to search the deep web, describing the multitudes of websites they have, showcasing high-grade military firearms all the way down to 22 caliber pistols that you can buy pretty much anywhere. I start searching and come upon things like rocket launchers, silenced 50 caliber Berettas, and even military grade body armor, which I found weird because things like these are mostly military use only. Anyways, after browsing different weaponry websites, I decided to dig a little deeper, having researched exactly what this was and seeing the many different things the deep web holds. I come across a website which was known for snuff videos, which are basically POV murder clips of someone being murdered for the excitement of others. I don't find this all that exciting myself, but it's something that one just becomes curious about. After a while, a little chat box appears at the bottom right hand corner of the screen. "Hey there," the message read. I decided not to respond to this, because I got a real good impression on the creepy fucks that tend to stick around on these websites. Another message appears though. "Ignoring would be a huge mistake on your part." Now, considering my background, I do not take kindly to threats, and as a wise person I know once said, if you want somebody to fuck off, you tell them to fuck off. You don't say, "nice sweater." So, I did just that. "Go fuck yourself," I responded. After a few minutes of silence, this chat box turns into what I thought was a picture at the time, but it turned out to be a live feed after seeing someone walk in front of the camera. "Hi, Nick." After staring at the screen, shocked and speechless for a few moments, the man says, "What? Got nothing to say now? You sounded like a fighter just a few minutes ago." After realizing that he can see and hear everything from the microphone and camera on my laptop, I responded, "How do you know my name?" He laughs and responds, "I know everything about you," and starts describing pictures that were at that moment saved on my laptop, some consisting of my little sister, brother, mother, and father, etc. Still in shock and speechless about what is actually happening, he laughs once more. "I'll see you real soon, Nick," and the feed cuts. Now, I know all about keyboard warriors and common trolls on the internet, but this was different. I didn't expect him to actually go through with this, but I was wrong. Some days, I would come home to pictures of myself from the feed laying on the porch, and even had an incident where my neighbor told me that somebody was scouting around my house. After learning this, I started keeping my shotgun near me at all times while in the house. Things started to escalate at night, however. Some nights, I would hear random knocks on the windows, starting from the front of the house and working its way to the back in rapid succession, and even had a break-in one night while I was out with my friends. According to the police, the door in my carport leading into the far end of the house had been pried away from the frame, allowing full access into my house. Nothing was stolen, thankfully, but everything in my house was just thrown and trashed. The next morning, I had a security company come out and install cameras around my house that can be accessed from my iPhone at any time. Just a few days after doing this, it finally ended. One night though, I was sitting on my kitchen preparing food for myself. Then I hear... It was coming from the windows on the front of my house. There's a storm shutter attached on the outside though, so I just blew it off as the wind making the shutter tap the window. Not even 2 minutes later, I hear a loud bang. It comes from my front door, something I can only describe as a linebacker running full speed into the door. At this moment, all red flags pop up in my head. The laundry room, which has the circuit breaker to my house, is connected to the kitchen. I grab my shotgun, walk into the laundry room, and cut all the power to my house so everything is consumed in pitch darkness. I walk back into the kitchen and level the sight with my eye, and just wait until something or someone crosses its path. After a few minutes, it seems as whatever it was might have left, until I heard this person trying to pry open the carport door again. I creep over to the sunroom, which is connected to the door this guy's coming through, and wait. He manages to pry the door open and steps in. At this moment, my heart is jackhammering like a quarterback on prom night. I raise my weapon up and wait for him to take a few more steps for safe measure. After his 4th or 5th steps, I pump the shotgun to load a round into the chamber. He stops, dead in his tracks. I give him a few moments to see whether he's going to run or keep coming in. A few moments pass, and just when I think he's going to turn around and run out, he takes a step forward. I pull the trigger, and the sound of a cannon echoes throughout my house. He is blown a couple of feet back into the wall behind him, blood splattering across the wall. After watching him lay for a few moments without the slightest hint of life, I call the police. After questioning me, I give them the whole story. They tell me he's a felon with a rap sheet a mile long, including kidnapping and attempted rape. He also had a knife and duct tape in pockets of his hoodie. I cannot even imagine what he had planned for me if I wasn't armed that night.
You asleep, Andrew?
Number 3.
I had heard little to nothing about the deep web prior to a couple of months ago. All I had heard was the size of the hidden information and the kinds of sites on there. I was kind of curious about all this stuff. I couldn't see with my regular browser,
Story's crazy.
so I downloaded Tor. I had heard about a program called Tails, but I didn't think I needed that much protection because I wasn't going to be doing any
Well, this
illegal
is like a
things on the
bunch of
deep web
stories,
anyway.
Andrew.
So I loaded up Tor and got onto the hidden wiki. I was lucky not to have stumbled across child porn, but I saw some other stuff that was quite unsettling. So, after clicking random links on the hidden wiki, I got to a site called Snuffocate. I had no idea what a snuff film was, nor had I ever wished to know. When I clicked the link, I was brought to a blank, white page with a little Bitcoin wallet on the top left of the screen. After about 5 seconds of being on this page, a small window popped up on my screen. I tried to close the window, but the mouse and the keyboard weren't working. I thought I had just installed some sort of virus, but then the video came into focus on the window. It showed a woman, probably in her mid-20s, with duct tape all around her. I was confused at first, but then my imagination of what would happen next went wild. I thought to myself,
Please, people aren't that crazy. The police can easily track this down.
but then a small, lean man with a ski mask on walked into the shot. He looked at the camera and gave a thumbs up and what looked like a smile from under the ski mask. He then laid the girl on her side and a small chat box popped up. When I tried typing in it, it read, "Only administrators can chat." Then a message popped up by the name of Agent.907. He said, "Kick her." Sure enough, the man in the video kicked her. He kicked her quite hard. Agent 907 replied, "Kick her harder. I paid a lot of money for this." Then it hit me. This is actually happening to somebody, and people pay to watch this. I went to unplug my computer, but then the man in the video paused and said,
Now, John, don't be doing that.
I was so confused and scared at the same time. I said,
How do you know my name?
he said,
Don't worry, it's not just me. Everybody watching this can see you.
I then pressed my hands against my webcam. He said,
Uncover your webcam, or I'll come over there and put you in this video.
I said,
You don't even know where I live.
he responded with,
Everybody knows where you live. It's on the website.
as he said this, my name, address, phone number, IP address, and my picture showed up on the website. I took my hands off of the camera and watched the rest of the film in horror. Since that day, I haven't been on the deep web, and I've barely even been on my phone or computer lately in horror. The only advice I have for you is be careful on the deep web. It can really cost you.
Number 2.
In 2014, after hearing all of the horror stories, I wanted to check it out myself. In a way, I kind of expected nothing other than scam sites for assassins, people requesting CP, and some underground markets. However, I prepared for the worst, and frankly, I was more worried about getting in trouble by authorities rather than having my mind bleached for the near future. Even after 2 to 3 hours of procrastination, nothing prepared me for what I saw.
Andrew, what do you think
It was
of
during the middle of the day
boots and
when I
the
began my search.
purple?
Of course, there's no deep web Google or
Cloth.
anything, but rather a wiki with a lot of links. The links are different than the links you may know of. These links have no way of knowing what lays behind it, just numbers and .onion at the end. Of course, unless previously defined and listed on the wiki page. It was boring at first, a lot of dead sites. More than expected, there were eBay-style markets for weapons, military grade mind you, services, and of course drugs. I came across a chat room where I saw a darker side of people I never thought was possible. So many people that were mentally ill, threatening others, requesting CP. It was truly disgusting. Think of the people who walked the dark streets of a bad neighborhood with anything they desired at their fingertips. 2 hours later, I came across one site that ended my little adventure in the wastes of human consciousness. A cult site, perhaps, with little info other than an email address and some religious mumbo-jumbo. However, there was a video embedded in the site's homepage. Like a naive child, I clicked it without a care in the world. The video was shot with a crappy video camera. Perhaps it was shot in the early, mid-2000s. It was a man with a mask and a knife. As quickly as that scene showed, another presented itself. He was cutting something in a similar fashion to a butcher shop. It was then and there that I realized the body was bipedal and it didn't have any fur. It was a human being. He was cutting the legs at the buttocks level. A new scene shows the decapitation of the head. Then another shot of the man with the mask, followed by a picture of a church with a weird symbol. This was a cult recruiting website. It was followed by more bodies being cut up and hung in ways more gruesome than you may expect. Shortly after, I turned my computer off, and I stayed off it for quite some time. This was my first and last visit to the deep web. I have never contemplated going back since.
Number 1.
Let me start off by saying that I absolutely do not recommend visiting the deep web. Had my utterly fucking stupid 13-year-old self known this, I would never have gone on myself. Nothing good will ever come of it. So, just learn from my mistakes and don't do it. That out of the way, I was in the 7th grade. It was the day before winter break began, and I'd been left home alone. I sat in my room at my desk, which was facing a window. I was playing games on my laptop when I remembered having a Skype group call, and something called Tor came up. Being the stupid idiot I was, I downloaded it as soon as it came to mind. A few minutes and a few links later, I found myself at the hidden wiki. There were so many links, and I didn't even understand half the things that were being described. For everyone's own sake, including my own, I won't mention the things I saw. If you're at all familiar with the deep web, you should have a pretty good idea what a reckless child can stumble upon. But one such thing will haunt me for the rest of my life. I'm directly responsible for the death of another person, in some regard at least. I didn't pay for it, mind you, but I was a part of the audience that was apparently enough to encourage this sick fuck killer. It was a little girl. She couldn't have been much older than 9, if that. She was tied to a chair, her mouth duct taped. She was crying and had the most horrified expression I had ever seen on a person. A man walked in and started repeatedly punching her in the face with brass knuckles. He cut at her a bit too, her wrists, her forehead, her chest, stomach, all of it. Several minutes later, he walked out. She sat there, bleeding, crying, clearly wishing it would just end. He walked back in, carrying a box. He dropped it and walked out. Out of the box came the biggest fucking rattlesnake I'd ever seen. It rattled and rattled, hissing at her and slowly slithering closer and closer. I could hear her muffled screams as it sank its fangs into her leg. I couldn't take it anymore. I closed the browser, deleted Tor, and I never looked back. The tale ends there, and as far as I know, there's no one out there hunting me down looking to kill me right now, thank the Lord. But please heed my words, and don't ever go on the deep web. No matter how cool it sounds, there's nothing but trouble there. The tale ends there, and as far as I know, there's no one out there hunting me down looking to kill me right now.
Is there an
G'day,
echo?
mates. It's Be Busta here. Well, as someone with minimal understanding of computer programming, no matter how cool it sounds, there's nothing but trouble there.
Andrew, is there an echo, buddy? Is there an echo?
Mates. It's Be Busta here. Well, as someone with minimal understanding of computer programming.
Well, either way, I'm gonna play I'm gonna play one more video and then I'm gonna get off. Okay.
G'day, mates. So, before the video starts, I just wanted to give a viewer's discretion for some of the stories in this video. The deep web is a brutal and scary place,
His
and
voice,
as such,
though.
if you are unable to handle gore and extreme violence and abuse, you may want to skip from this video and watch some of my other videos. But, for those who have the iron will to go on, let's begin. The deep web is a brutal and scary place,
His
and
voice,
as such,
though.
if you are unable to handle gore and extreme violence and
Number
abuse,
6.
you may want to skip from this video.
The voice, though.
My experience with the deep web is quite limited, but I think that the confession site is probably the creepiest site I've ever come across myself. On this dark website, you are greeted with a long list of short paragraphs, each with a different author. At the top of the page, a message invites you to confess your sins for everyone to see. As you scroll down through the home page, you see that the paragraphs, each beginning with "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned," are confessions of other visitors. I was drawn to this pretty much in the same way as I am drawn to green text 4chan stories, but I was fairly horrified by what I saw. The confessions range from simple faults to more serious crimes, and even murder. Whether the stories are true or not, I will never know, but the place still freaked me out.
Number 5.
Wow. That was a really shitty story.
So, I was browsing the deep web, and I was going through some sites. As I was going through, I stumbled across this Russian board. It had pictures of dead children in it. There was one picture that looked like it had been taken from an autopsy room with a 10-year-old boy cut in 4 parts. Literally. The 2 legs in a bucket, upside down. There were other pictures of dead children that were very bloody. I don't know if these pictures were true or fake. I just went away and never came back. There was also a webpage about the human experimentation. It was done on kidnapped homeless people. It was only text though, so I suspect it may have been a hoax page, but they described how they injected these homeless people with random liquids they had found in their houses or on the street, and then they would let them die from it and then sell their organs on the black markets or on the deep web. They also gruesomely described what fucked up mutations would grow and appear on them, and they had photos of it. Very up-close standard quality photos from places like Iraq or something like that, and all in one cramped warehouse. All my deep web notes and links and deep web search engines and onion sites are on my old computer, and I'm happy they're gone, because curiosity kills me, and I wouldn't be able to hold myself back from getting back on the deep web.
Number 4.
Here is my story. One day, I was on the internet watching random videos when I came across one that talked about this thing called the deep web. I didn't know what the deep web was, so I googled it, but couldn't find it. Then I read that you had to download a program called Tor, so I did. I launched Tor and tested the program by searching for weed for sale. I couldn't find anything, but I did find a website called The Hidden Wiki. I browsed the links that it provided and found a website that would allow me to buy some weed. I browsed through the different types of weed and found the kind that I liked. I bought 3 grams of purple kush for 0.16 bitcoins, which I had to farm using my GPU I got at Best Buy. As I was entering my delivery details, a box popped up. It was black at first, so I tried to exit out. But no matter what I did, the box wouldn't go away. Then, all of a sudden, the box started playing a video. There was a guy sitting in a dark room. I could only see his face, and he was wearing a Guy Fawkes mask. The video went full screen, and I was unable to move my mouse. The guy started talking in a really deep tone that made it clear that he was using a voice changer.
Hello there, Jack. How are you?
He said. I felt paralyzed with fear. I looked at the man with an expression of fear on my face.
Don't look at me like that.
He said. I looked at my webcam and realized that it was on. I quickly unplugged it.
Oh, you're no fun.
He said, chuckling. Who the fuck? I muttered to myself.
That's not important now, is it?
He replied. I was shocked and realized that my microphone was still on. I was going to unplug it as well, but decided that it was my only way to communicate with him. Tell me who the fuck you are, or I'll be turning my fucking computer off, I yelled. He laughed before replying, You can call me Critic. What do you want? I asked.
My objective is simple,
he replied.
I'm here to spook you.
He laughed again. Before I could respond to him, he spoke again.
How is the weather in Atlanta?
He asked.
It's not creepy
I
at
began
all.
to panic. Not only did he know my name, but he also knew where I lived. I was getting angry now. "Well, if you're so tough, then take off the mask," I yelled along with a string of profanities.
Very well.
He said as he removed his mask. What lied beneath still chills me to this very day. He didn't have a face, but instead a skull. It looked real, and it didn't look like another mask or a dummy. It looked almost legitimate. I freaked out and started trying to unplug my computer, but was stopped when he said,
If you do that, then I will come to your house and kill your dog.
I looked at him again and he laughed a demonic laugh. Then he said,
Well, that's enough internet for you today.
as my screen started to turn to static. All of a sudden it stopped, and all the tabs that were open on my browser closed. I tried to open up Google, but was met with a no internet connection detected error. I checked my computer's internet and it said that it couldn't connect. It stayed this way for 20 minutes before allowing me to access the internet again. In the meantime, I was sure to completely uninstall the Tor browser. The funny thing is, my weed was delivered normally, but even so, I never ever plan on visiting the deep web ever again.
Number 3.
Well, my first experience with the deep web was a bit bizarre, I think. My first experience, I was looking for porn. Yes, I know, we all do that. I was looking around and stumbled across a video. In the video, there were 2 Asian guys and 1 girl. The girl was asleep, but I think she may have been drugged, and they were switching each other while raping her. She had a rope in her mouth, so when she woke up, or was waking up, she started screaming, crying and moaning. The guys told her something, but I couldn't understand it because it was in another language. Then the girl kept crying and screaming. So one guy took a chainsaw, not the automatic one, the one that you need to move up and down, and started chopping her leg, like it was nothing. After they severed the leg off, they bandaged it, and then they just kept raping her. It was really messed up.
Number 2.
There's your screwed up story, Andrew.
My friend told me about the deep web, and I, as much as other people here, got curious about it. So I thought, why not explore it? I went to my friend's house and I was ready to explore the deep web with him. My best friend and I sat down on his mum's desk and then we started. We downloaded the browser and explored. We got into a site with a lot of URLs to access. We tried the first one and we got to a human experience site, which had sick images like children being gutted or starving and other morbid stuff. Completely disgusting. We clicked the second link and suddenly all the screen turned black. We were like, what the fuck? But then a door opens on the video and a really scary guy with a mask comes out holding a knife in his hand. Of course, we immediately tried to turn off the computer, but we couldn't turn it off. The mouse had disappeared from the screen and the keyboard wasn't working anymore. The guy in the mask started saying really creepy things like,
I know where you live. I want to hear your voice.
but then the mask said,
Let's see what you look like.
we thought, what the hell is he saying? But suddenly the webcam started flashing and our faces appeared right next to the mask and took 2 photos of us. Next we decided to turn the computer off by turning off the electricity. We did it and everything was alright after that. I went to my home and barely could sleep that night thinking about what had happened. My friend and I never talked about this again. But one day, about a month later, my friend said he had received a letter with no addressee on it. When we opened the letter, it said in big red letters, "We are watching you. If you come back, we also come there." 4 months have passed since that time. Nothing weird has happened, but if something does happen, I'll never forgive myself, because the idea of exploring the deep web was mine. So guys,
don't do
never
it.
explore the deep web.
You really think that stops people?
Number 1. I have 2 stories to tell. I was browsing through the deep web this one time. I remember seeing a dude who wanted to have an awesome time.
Andrew, why don't
with
we
his
explore the deep
stepdaughter.
web one day? Come over to my house, we'll do it.
I believe she was about 6 or 9 or so. Anyways, this dude, which we'll call Bob, started to buy her gifts and stuff and eventually told her that they should take a shower together so that he could become a better stepdad. Mind you, all of this was recorded and filmed on this site. After a while, their showers eventually became a daily routine. So Bob told his stepdaughter to sleep together so he could hug her. So they did. Eventually, the sleep stopped being sleeping time and it basically became the fun time. Of course, the daughter didn't enjoy it, but he was forcing her. The sick thing is that one day, Bob's girlfriend caught him in the fun times, but apparently she did nothing. Confused, Bob asked why she wasn't mad. The girlfriend said she always had this dream of fun times with her daughter as well. So, eventually the family had a family game night. And of course, they took pictures and videotaped for the memories, and for us, the visitors of the site, to see. The second story, I think, is probably one of the craziest things I've ever seen on the deep web. Again, I was browsing the deep web and found a site where allegedly some dude was mad because his girlfriend cheated on him. This guy apparently went on this site to find a person who could rid him of his problems permanently. So the guy told his new friend that he will pay the first half before and the second half after the cleaning was done. This new friend, who we'll name Tim, said okay to this. So, long story short, this Tim guy got rid of the cheating problem and ruined the ex's life by destroying her credit, stealing all of her money, and ultimately changing a few things on her record. So, that's that. At least that's what Tim thought. Tim said to this guy, "Where's the other half of my money, man?" And the dude didn't want to pay up, and he left. Of course, Tim was mad because he got rid of the problems permanently, and he didn't get paid. So Tim found this guy in a matter of hours, and a few days later, he approached him in person. After a little talking with him one-on-one, Tim posted a few pics of the dude and warned the new people that they need to keep their promises. Of course, the dude wasn't really strong enough to stand on his own. Tim had killed this man and actually stuffed him so that he could stand in the pics that he had posted as a warning to anyone who thought about even trying to cheat him.
It's not fucking creepy at all.
Of course, the dude wasn't really strong enough to stand
Is
on
that
his
it?
own. Tim had killed this man. G'day, mates. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. A big thank you to Anthony Salinas once again for his amazing
Andrew,
thumbnail.
I'll catch you later, fam.
If
We'll
you
see
haven't
tomorrow at work.
already,
Peace out, buddy.